3, 2, 1. Alrighty then, next topic. We're going to talk about these things, these magical rectangular brick things. Rectangular.
iPads and cell phones.
Yeah.
And
So,
yeah.
these things, are these things good for your family? Are they good for your kids? Are they good for society? What do you think of these things?
I'm a mixed bag because I feel like they've highly advanced society and connected everyone in a very good way because we've learned a lot about each other and can connect with each other very quickly. And we can get the truth on things that the news tries to feed us untruth about, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we are also, once our brain is developed as adult women and men, um, we have this thing called discernment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we can discern whether things feel off or the truth, and we can do investigative things to figure out the truth. Whereas when you have children and you sit your children in front of a TV, an iPad, or a cell phone at a very young age, we know statistically and scientifically that it creates problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't agree that children should in any form have over a certain amount of access to it per day. And I don't have children, but if I did, it would be heavily monitored, and I wouldn't be one of those parents. First of all, I would be a homeschool parent. So, and second of all, I would not allow an iPad or a cell phone, maybe TV, like 1 or 2 hours a day while I'm trying to get some household tasks done.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the extent of that, and it would be heavily monitored. Other than that, you're going to be learning through what I'm teaching you, through your experiences, through people that I trust. That's my view of it.
I could get behind
To
that.
build a healthy adult.
So, for me, obviously, I view this little brick like I view the printing press. It was all about who got it first that the biggest problem could be. Because if you hand the printing press back in time to, let's say, an oppressive, tyrannical state government,
mm-hmm.
And they have the ability to print propaganda faster than anyone can even print toilet paper,
okay.
Well then, yeah, there's a huge problem there. But if you hand it to just a comic book artist, and the entire world is enriched with like these fantasy ideas of maybe a super person who runs around and saves people, then your society develops better because now they have, a concept of like heroism now. So it's all about how you use the technology. But I do see the instant danger of handing this to any sort of child because this thing's listening to me all the time.
Right.
This thing has little counters that are in the digital cloud space that every single time I say pool table, it goes down and says there's been a pool table set.
Yeah.
We sell them a pool table. So kids carrying these things around is not a good idea.
Because we as adults, we know like if an app is free, we are the product.
I mentioned it once at a guy at work that I was like, I don't like the cameras on my phone because I don't know when it's actually on, when it's actually off, when it's taking pictures of me. I thought about just buying a little sticker and putting it over there. And he's like, you can disable the camera. And I'm like, how do you do that? He said, in your apps and stuff. And I'm like, how do you know it works? He said, because it says it does. Well, because it says it does and because it actually does are two different things. So, and also there's the problem of dopamine addiction in your brain. This thing, and I know for some people they don't really understand that, this little rectangle, if I ever get my shapes right, is capable of satisfying you more than some of the actual addictive substances of like yesteryear. So alcohol back in the 40s, that thing can satisfy you way more than alcohol ever could.
Do you guys know how they actually came up with the apps and how to get you addicted? It was through the casinos because they realized people doing this and moving their fingers up and down, it was addictive to them. And they got a reward here and there, so they made the apps like that, so you constantly scroll up and down, left to right, and you're constantly getting a new hit of dopamine through your visual cortex to keep you engaged. And it also shortens your mind span.
Now, the biggest problem I had when Windows went from Windows 7 to Windows 8. Windows 7, I clicked on the All Programs tab, or I would just click on an icon on my desktop,
Yeah.
and it would pop up this big, cold, emotionless list of everything I owned that was always in alphabetical order. And I would just go, yes, perusing. And that's because I do art.
Yeah,
I'm an artist.
right.
I'm a creator. I like my space to be the way I like it.
Yeah, sure.
And then when it went to Windows 8, it went from scrolling, very colorful little icons. It was like that casino thing. They were expecting me to be dopamine infused, but an artist does not get dopamine from having his stuff touched.
Yeah.
So for me, it was a very negative interaction. But I heard everyone swearing up and down for a while, especially some of my friends that I did stuff with when I was complaining, that it was the best thing that had ever happened to them. And I'm like, why? It's like, well, sometimes the icons change. Sometimes the icons advertise things. I can scroll and I can find stuff easily. And I'm like, but can you window within window? Every time I talked about its functionality, they didn't seem like they even cared. It was, for them, the interface was the fun. The playing with the machine was the fun.
Right.
Well, I need to achieve something. Please let me get back to work. I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
So the first app I got was the Windows 7 simulator, and I was so happy when it went from Windows 7 to 10, and 10, and then Windows 8 was just gone. It just deleted because people who needed their computers could not use it. And so that kind of dopamine rush for a child especially is far too poisonous.
Yes.
They will become addicted to it. They won't know how to live without it. They won't know how to self-regulate.
Right.
They won't know how to do anything. They won't know how to talk to people without their phone in their hand. And the big problem is we're gonna pause for a train. We're gonna have a train pause.
Yeah. Train pause.
Yeah, have fun editing this. Does your phone save the edited clips? Like when you edit the clips in, does it save the edited clip when it's done as the result?
I don't know.
Well, I mean, you can just send me the link to what you have created on one site, and I can, or and then I can do something with that if I need to ever. If you ever need to do something with that. Trains passed. What was I saying?
I don't know. I feel like it's highly disruptive. Like, I feel like a lot of parents give their kids the iPads because they just don't want to spend the time. They don't want to take the energy to actually be involved with their children. And like we've seen it a million times where they throw little fits.
It's the
when they
iPad
get
is
it
now
taken
the new
away.
babysitter. Yeah.
Because they've started them from 4 and 5 years old, and then they're a teenager, and they're disobeying, and they get their stuff taken, and they throw complete tantrums. And it's like, that is not healthy.
And what's amazing is by taking the iPad away, you're only reinforcing the dopamine cycle.
Yeah.
Because now the iPad, the phone, has become the source of dopamine. And you're also establishing by not having it as some kind of punishment. Sometimes you need your phone taken away because it's for your own good, not because it's a punishment. So by installing that, you're just digging the hole deeper.
But had they never had that,
I was never in any fear of losing my phone growing up. That's because with my dyslexia, technology is a frustrating thing for me.
Yeah.
Not a dopamine-fueled fun fest. For me, it's just, gotta deal with this more often. My parents had to force me to get my first flip phone. And while everyone else had smartphones out, I was still...
Yeah.
And it was all I was willing to deal with, because I hated phones that much. And with the dopamine cycling being what it is, once you're so heavily addicted, especially as a child, and you become just need that, you're making a more vulnerable person for when they don't have that and don't have other things in their life as well.
Well, they can't communicate. Do you ever go, like we go out places, and any, like the teenagers, even the adults and young adults, they're all glued to their phone. They're not having conversations. They're not having healthy conversations.
They're just...
Or communication because they don't know how.
and their main source of their addiction is also infused with all of the drama and political nonsense of today.
Yes.
So whether you support Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, you name all those big triggering names, no matter who you support, they should not have complete control of how your experience goes through this like super dopamine field that your children are now suckling on endlessly.
And they build an identity around what other people's realities are instead of going out into the world and building their own dreams and their own identity and their own empire. They build their identity around what other people are doing, what other people believe, because, oh, if they're doing it, then I should be doing it. It's like the thing where, all the people follow the people off the cliff, but you should really be going the other way.
And not to mention, you have what I think should be the number one worry of there is a camera on that phone, and you just handed it to a toddler. And with access to Wi-Fi, internet, everything, with that phone being connected, even if you think you haven't paid anything on that phone, and you think that nothing is... Google has no reason to not activate their stuff on that phone while denying you yours. So that camera turns on, and you have no idea what it's looking at the whole time while he's running around with that phone and watching. So for me, it feels like, every time I have a new technology, I always stop and ask the question, if I were malicious, if I were the Grinch, if I were evil, what would I do with this asset?
Right.
And what could they then do to me with this asset? And then that's when I say, you know what? Let's put the little sticker over the camera. Let's put some putty over the microphone, and let's say no.
Not to mention, your router, your computer, your cell phone, your air fryer, anything that emits an electrical signal, that's affecting you in some way. Just with the 5G and everything else, it is emitting an EMF frequency, which we know scientifically affects your brain and your body. Every tissue in your body it affects.
Now, to be fair, and put a big
there's
logo.
Science behind that.
No, I'm saying, to be fair, some of you might be thinking that's a conspiracy theory. I don't have to listen to that.
No.
But to be fair, the man who made leaded gasoline knew for a fact people would get lead poisoning from it. He knew for a fact that there would be a time in which we accept using leaded gasoline and then we go away from using leaded gasoline. He knew that he would be making money only in that period at the bump, and that he might have to pay, because he paid lawyers and discussed it thoroughly, how much he'd have to pay at the end of that bump when people realized the truth. And then he made it anyway. And he knew that it was dangerous. He knew that it would have an effect on us. And then he went on later to make Freon. Now, admittedly, he didn't know that one was dangerous, because it was only dangerous in the upper atmosphere, and he did not have access to any of that.
Well,
but
we're getting into a different subject.
But what I'm saying is, people could know absolutely that these have some effect. And they'll just pick and choose the information that they want to say that there's no effect.
Absolutely.
But why would you ever invite it if it wasn't absolutely necessary? At least Freon.
Because of complacency and laziness.
Yeah, at least Freon keeps my fridge cold, and at least leaded gasoline moves my car. But that phone, if I don't have to talk to anyone, why am I using it?
And I feel like that's a difference between people who have kids at a young age. They themselves, I don't know. I feel like there's a difference between people who have kids in their teenage and 20s, where they don't have access to all of the knowledge and information, and you grow into who you're becoming when you're older, and then you have the best interest at heart for your children, because you've already went through life and experienced a lot more in life, right?
I think especially now that I'm in my 30s, if I think about being in my 30s versus in my 20s. In my 20s, there was always a nervousness about how am I going to succeed? How am I going to do this? And when you don't know the right answers yourself,
how could you lead
anyone else? And you can't lead anyone else. The answer is to distract them so that you don't have to deal with it.
Absolutely.
So handing them a phone, and I have done this myself. I have just turned on YouTube, picked a funny series that I thought might be entertaining for a bit, and just sat the child down and said, just watch this while we babysit you. but that's not leadership. That's not
No.
really parent. That's not anything. That's just hoping to God that their attention is set on this device so that I can be passive in this existence.
Yes, right.
But now in my 30s, I can think of a million things I would have wanted to show them. I would want to make a little house out of cardboard, set it on fire, and teach them how to put out a house fire or something.
Right.
I'd be like, want to play with a fire extinguisher? Want to play with fire?
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to play with fire?
Yeah.
And I, as an adult, 30 years old, am perfectly competent to do that safely. I have fire blankets, fire extinguishers, hoses. I can set that up. It'd probably be awesome.
Yeah.
And it would be a life-building lesson.
Right.
Versus me just sitting down at a computer and saying, just watch this. I don't know.
Yeah, because you yourself, when you're young, you don't know who you are. You're just kind of in survival mode. And you were probably made a parent too young now. And then, as you learn more through life, you begin to ask, who am I? What are my values? What can I pass on my good qualities to my children? And how can I make them better than me? How can I avoid the mistakes that my parents made and that I made in life? You start to question those things when you get a little older.
And everyone will make mistakes, but I feel like when you're young, those mistakes are just so much easier to step on as a landmine, especially if you maybe had a rocky childhood growing up and you're already dealing with certain emotional traumas and you're not as mature as maybe you should be.
Right.
Because the truth is, time is what matures us. But if your parent is wasting your time with a device, you are now not maturing at the right rate. So in your 20s, you're still as mature as you were in your 10s, but you're now older. And all of your maturing years are now spent on that device, and now you got to mature while you yourself have someone that you need to help mature as well. So, all you did was stave it off. You didn't skip it. You still have to push through. Except now you'll be pushing through with a lot more at stake.
Yeah. I know I myself have to, because I'm even bad now about getting on my device and just scrolling. And after like an hour, I'm like, okay, this is enough. Like, I've fully gone into like addiction mode. Put it down.
When YouTube Shorts was a thing, I legitimately scrolled for an entire day one time, just because it was just the ultimate like not satisfying, but the addictive tendency of this clip doesn't work for me. Scroll the next one. This clip doesn't work for me. Scroll the next one. What is this clip? Oh, it's over. That was interesting.
Do you ever actually learn anything? No. You might laugh a little bit, but it's not.
Now I have a much better habit of going direct, because now I see the gimmick.
Yeah.
So I don't get on that. I get on a person's YouTube. I watch all of their shorts because I think their shorts are funny, because it's like a fireman doing fire rescue, whatever. I'll watch all his shorts, all his videos, and then I'll go back to the main page. And if it turns out if I'm in a short, I do not allow it to scroll. I don't allow it to go to the next one.
Yeah.
I always get off and say, I will not let the algorithm determine what I watch.
Yeah, because the algorithm only pushes like the top people. It doesn't push things that you're even interested in sometimes.
If you ever want to break your addicted dopamine cycle, and especially break your algorithm, because your algorithm shows you things it does not show to other people. And it's showing other people things that you might be interested in, and it's not showing you because it's trapping you in a bubble.
Yeah.
If you ever want to break the algorithm, just find some random wheels, find some object, and ask, what is that? How is that made? How does that work? Type it in, watch a video, even if it's boring, and you'd be surprised how much your algorithm would change. I watched an entire 2-hour video on how to make wagon wheels. It was awesome. I loved it.
I like to support small creators that are real, that are authentic, just like myself. I'm trying to make it, and I know they are too. So I like to support those type of people. I don't want to support somebody who I know it's scripted and they have a whole team and this and that. Like, it just doesn't appeal to me.
It definitely doesn't appeal to me as much anymore, because I think it lost the quality that all of that was for. The whole reason you had a team was to increase the quality of the content, the clarity, and to get to the point quicker. And it's no longer accomplishing that goal.
No.
Now it is phoning in, you're just hiring people so they can phone in their narratives into the show. And for no other purpose other than phoning in narratives. So now a show ends up nothing but word salad. You can't understand anything.
And once they get so big, you notice they stay away from very specific topics.
They do.
Because they're getting paid by somebody, and when you get
paid,
you have to go by what they want you to say.
Mm-hmm. And I know some people's, especially on the children front, some people's solution is to limit creators and go to all of these various big media outlets and say, you need to make child appropriate content. Well, I can tell you that's not going to happen. They will make content, they will label it child appropriate, and then you will see a Powerpuff Girl twerking. Mm-hmm. We've seen that with Cartoon Network and their eventual downfall.
Yeah, right.
You cannot trust a big media source to teach your children for you. You got to do it. You have to watch those cartoon shows with your kids, even if you don't want to. You know
that now...
And then you shut it down when you decide, whoa, that's enough.
There are so many subliminal messaging in all of the old, 90s movies. You go back and watch it, and there is so many subliminal messages and hidden concepts that you wouldn't have known when you're a kid.
Yeah.
That they ingrained into your mind to normalize it.
Oh, absolutely. And I know some of you are going to say, well, those were just jokes. I know the difference between a joke and what is a joke and what is not a joke.
Yeah.
I believe me, I watched it. I remember the episode with a dad's trophy on the wife's shorts or whatever. That's funny. But we also remember Nickelodeon and how much trouble are they in right now, and how many of their shows are now weird with why are they doing 3 minutes of that? Why are they licking armpits for 3 minutes? Can they stop?
So you have to go into who owns them, who writes for them, and then you're gonna be like, no, we're not doing this anymore because we see what their agenda is, and it's not.
No, I will say, no matter how corrupting a media source might feel in the moment, that can all be undone in an instant by proper parental guidance, which I know is so hard for people, but my parents did it just fine. When I watched The Simpsons, the OG Simpsons, Itchy and Scratchy came on. We all remember that. They fight, they fight, they fight, they fight, they fight. Now, Itchy and Scratchy always depicted treehouse of horror level violence. And my parents didn't know if they wanted me to watch it or not. So they had the most clever idea. Boys, cover your eyes. And what would we do? We're there covering our eyes. Eyes fully open watching it. But this context of, remember, this is not acceptable, this is for adults, this is not for children. That context, every single time. I even covered my eyes when I was alone. I didn't know why. I was just like, okay. I'm like, why am I doing this? I'm alone. They ain't going to catch me. But that little bit of that thrill of doing something you're not supposed to, seeing something you're not supposed to see, as a child, put it into context for when I'm an adult to remember that violence like that is not funny all the time. It's not appropriate all the time. It's not always this, it's not like that. The context ruined whatever the big corporate media wanted, because the contents of the parents just saying, cover your eyes, changed everything. And, I think that matters much more. The entire Hollywood industry can be undone by a parent just putting their hand on their child's shoulder and being like, hey, cover your eyes for this. Well, even if you know they're going to watch it.
I think that the Hollywood industry is already fallen. I think we're just finally catching up to the fact that it is garbage. You know?
Absolutely. Especially as creators lost their creative control of how things were done in lieu of saving money. And now you have creators who have no control because the place has to save money, while they also have to spend most of the money on phoning in messages that they want your kids to see. So now all we can see is the messages. It's the entire episode was nothing but flying a big pride flag. Well, that's great and all, but why? I thought the show was about talking cabbages or something. Why are you flying the pride flag? I don't get it. Well, it's because they didn't have any money to hide it any better, because they're trying to save money all the time.
Well, they're not even trying to hide their agenda anymore.
Whatever that agenda might be.
Through it.
Especially the school tablets coming home saw a lot of revealing of people's hidden agendas through devices. Had a lot of parents hiding behind those screens and turning them around. And no matter what your belief might be, every parent wants to be the primary person to tell their children how the world should be viewed and through what lens.
But you
Not,
can't expect that when you send your children to school
yeah,
5 days a week until they're 18. You see them, what, an hour or two after school and on the weekends. How can you expect for your children to have your values when you're sending them to someone else to learn, and they're creating their values and instilling their things into their mind?
yeah.
So they can't complain if they don't want to correct the issue and take a loss and homeschool their children and do with a little less. You can't bitch about it.
You know, there's nothing you could say
You know?
because there's nothing you could say because you decided to have someone else raise your child.
You need
You
to
know?
you need to live with a little less things and decide what's more important to you.
So in summary, basically this rectangle is basically for calling strangers, and why would you let your kid do that?
Yeah,
Yeah, so
I wouldn't.
yeah, I wouldn't.
What do you guys think? Leave a comment, like, subscribe. Tell us all the other things you want to hear about, and we'll delve into it.
Absolutely.